so, because really and truly, when the front counter, the front house folks are documenting a ticket, they're really telling the story of how things transpired. And we're going to be writing an SOP on this one. And so I've already kind of have begun the process on that. And, I've got the big why, and this is to standardize the way that we document an invoice. Who's going to be responsible, which would be all of the front house staff, the owner, general manager, service advisors, anybody that's billing out a ticket, right, or dealing with customers. And then, what are the key elements of the procedure? For me, I've got, that it needs to be descriptive and informative for the customer and the business. It also, kind of serves as protection, right? So I got the old CYA. And then, we want to have basically listed steps in order of telling the tale. And so I've got number one here, and this is kind of something that we'll work on together as a group. And to me, I did the exercise on my own, and I've got a 1 through 10, but I really want all of your all's input as well on kind of what makes sense. So when we think about this, and the whole goal is that we're going to have this SOP in place. It'll save you a lot of time when it comes down to training front counter staff, or, we never really become certified. It's always, I never called it anything like a certification. It's always kind of a validation, because that means that, we have to re-inspect and remake sure that our staff understands what the policies are, the way we want things done. And so to be able to go back to an SOP like this really makes it clear. If you're doing any type of training sessions or behavior sessions, if you notice somebody gets lazy or sloppy on how they're billing out tickets, then we can bring them back and go, hey, let's look at this as the way we want it to be done going forward. And as always, with these SOPs, you might say, hey, I don't even like number 4. Like, I'm going to take that out, and I'm doing something totally different, and that's fine. But at least together we'll kind of come up with one that's somewhat, standardized, that everybody in the group can have access to and make their own. And so when we start thinking about kind of 1 through 10, now we're documenting the ticket. So what's kind of, Keith, when you think about it, what would be the number one thing when we start to document this ticket?
Start to document. So have we already built the ticket in that, or is it the information that we're going to be getting from the customer in the vehicle?
Yeah, so we haven't documented anything. Right now we got an open work order, an open repair order, right? Yep. And, or that will eventually become the invoice of the for the customer that we're going to give them. But starting off, we're checking in the car. So what's kind of that number one thing when we document this ticket?
Well, it's all the customer's information, name, phone numbers that we're going to be able to get a hold of them, email stuff, address, and then once we've got all that we're able to, make the communication with them that we feel comfortable with. Then, of course, we dive into the vehicle and mileage and stuff like that to be able to, get it correctly loaded in there.
Okay, good. So yeah, I'm on board with what Keith's talking about, which is, we got to collect the phone number, the VIN number, the address of the customer and so forth. So, but once we get all of that documentation, and now we're explaining why is this car here, so I think that's the kind of way I'm looking at it when we're thinking about documenting and telling that story, what's going to go in the body of the ticket that we bill out. And so I'm thinking like the number one thing would be why is the car here? What's the customer's concern, right? Would everybody pretty much agree with that?